Okay, so a bit of an update to a story we were talking about this past week. Talked about it a little bit today in the morning show for the Saturday show. We talked about it a bit with some viewer comments and everything, but we hadn't really had much response from Valve at all. In fact, I wasn't even sure if Valve was going to address it publicly, really, because they really don't mention the Epic Store at all. Like, ever. It's interesting. I don't know if they do it because they want to ignore them as competition and just not acknowledge them most times, but most of the time they don't really ever talk about them ever. So when something like the Metro situation happened, I remember Deep Silver mostly made the statement, and then Valve, said something along the lines of it's a shame to see this, but the Epic Game Store is playing a bit more aggressively, buying up exclusives, for example, indie games, Metro. We just talked about that. Ubisoft's newest game, Division 2. But now things are getting a bit more interesting because it's less likely that Valve will be able to stay away from this. And they finally responded. Now, if you're not at all caught up here, very, very quickly, the Epic Store was found by people online who have been using it to actually be making calls and outright even pulling information from the Steam client that you may already have on your computer or may be using. And one thing that it would usually pull, and it would ask your permission, so most people were generally okay with that, is your friends list. Now, it'll say, hey, can we pull your friends over from Steam to the Epic Store? A lot of clients will do this, import friends list, as long as you say okay, but they found that it was actually also pulling information from a file that Steam creates that has things like your playtime, games owned, basically stuff about you as a gamer and what games you buy most of. It is valuable information for a store that pops up and they want to know what people have been buying on Steam, for example. That's some pretty valuable information, and they also do things like survey your computer and store it locally. According to them, though, they only send, as you can see here in this article by Eurogamer, also go over Valve's response. Information from this file is only sent to Epic if you choose to import your Steam friends, and then only hashed IDs of your friends are sent and no other information from the file. But the file still stores information. In fact, it seems that the Epic Store does call to the Steam client or searches that local kind of config.vdf file they have quite often. It'll look in there a lot, basically updating consistently and seeing what's going on. Now, what the issue there is, people are obviously concerned with privacy because, yeah, that's a bit of an invasion of privacy there. But it's also concerning that they could be doing other things with that information at some point in time. For example, they could change their terms of service and you hit accept, and all of a sudden they can take that info and ship it out, right? And all of a sudden they have all this information about you and your computer that they locally pulled info from. That is kind of the worst case scenario that people are concerned about right now. So it did get to a point, though, where we did have Tim Sweeney talk a bit about it, and apparently they're going to do some fixes to the store. So they've kind of admitted that there's an issue there if they're going to work on doing some fixes. So I don't really know what's going to happen here, because at this point, Valve actually gave a response to bleepingcomputer.com. Yes, thank you, Bleeping Computer. I see you there. And it was a response at the top here, and this is straight from a Valve spokesperson responding to Bleeping Computer about this, saying, "We're looking into what information Epic's launcher collects from Steam. The Steam client locally saves data such as the list of games you own, your friends list, and saved login tokens. Similar information stored in your web browser cookies, of course. If you go to a site and you punch in your information on Chrome, just as an example, Firefox does it as well. It will save your username and password if you would like to, and that way when you go back, it'll kind of already have it there. And then this is private user data stored on the user's home machine and is not intended to be used by other programs or uploaded to any third-party service." Well, guess what? Guess what the Epic Game Store is. Yeah, that would be considered a third-party service from or a program from Valve's Steam client. Now, they do go on to kind of talk to you a bit about where you can look at it yourself. Interested users can find local config.vdf and other Steam configuration files in their Steam client's installation directory and open them in a text editor to see what data is contained in these files. Basically, you can go in there and look at it yourself if you would like to. And from there, they also got their reply from Epic Games. We kind of looked over that already. That just talks about the friends with your explicit permission. But this is an interesting situation because now Valve is actively looking into what the Epic Games Store's client does in correlation to Steam on the same computer. So they're going to see if the Epic Games Store is actually pulling some serious information that it shouldn't be pulling, because people have had, they've been pointed out that it could be violating different laws or things about privacy, for example. So it's possible that Valve might see something there they're not happy with, and I'm going to be curious what happens at that time. But right now we do have at least some action from Valve, and now they've pretty much acknowledged this store that they have mostly ignored. I mean, you can't really ignore it when a program is actually spying on your program and pulling user information that you're technically supposed to be protecting, I guess, at that point. So, interesting stuff here. I'm not really sure what's going to happen from here, but Valve is, at this time, investigating the Epic Games Store, and I guess they'll put out something. And I guess the Epic Games Store will update, but one thing's for sure, this is getting a bit more serious than just competition between two programs when it comes to competing for just games in general. Now it's getting a bit out there with one spying on the other. But let me know what you guys think about this situation, because it seems to be developing probably throughout this week coming up. And there's a lot of stuff happening this week too, even outside of this. But this is a big story because a lot of people have been downloading the Epic Game Launcher as they've been having all kinds of things, whether it's free games outright or, of course, games you might want that you were hoping would be on Steam, but it's not now, and oh, I got to go download that thing. Once you download it and have launched it, it seems to, at that point, start looking at Steam. So keep that in mind, and we'll see if there is a response and update from Epic Games, and, of course, one from Valve. It's pretty hard to really trust Epic Games a bit now with their launcher that's been found by people, and they did not say anything, and they didn't even talk about updating it until people pointed it out. So it's very important to keep that in mind as well. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed this. Dislike it if not. And, guys, I'll see you later on tonight, actually, for a Spawncast. A lot of stuff to go over, and we're going to have a lot of fun. See you guys 9 p.m. Eastern Time.